Hey, it's Tanya and it's fall, so I've got my fall get up and I'm sitting outside because the weather is nice. So you might see these mosquitoes flying around because it's fall, it's Indiana, they freaking love my A negative. So later at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you my Halloween decorations because I'm really excited about them. But today I wanted to talk about a devotional that I gave at my cousin's bridal shower because they just had their wedding, so it made me think about it. And so congratulations to Savannah and Solomon. You're married. It's so exciting. Marriage is amazing. But one of the questions I had during my bridal shower that I asked people that they couldn't answer or they beat around the bush a lot on was, what does it mean to submit to your husband? Because when I asked it, people were dancing around the question. They didn't really answer it. So I wanted to answer that question for my cousin. So my husband and I came up with an analogy to explain what does it mean. So let's talk about it. So the first verse I wanted to talk about was Ephesians 5:22-27. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit everything to their husbands. So we came up with an analogy to do with like an airline flight because my husband's a pilot. So when you're on a commercial airline flight, you're going on vacation, there are two pilots that are getting that airplane off the ground and landing back on the ground. So there's a captain. They're the one that's been around the longest. They have more experience, more hours in a plane. And then there's the first officer. They're the one that hasn't been around a lot, but has been through a lot of training to be able to get to that point. And so these two are going to work together to get off the ground, land the plane. So that means they're working together, so they're equally yoked. So a verse that kind of goes with this is 2 Corinthians 6:14. Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness? So before a flight even starts, they have to figure out what is their destination and where do they want to go. Because just like a situation with a spouse, you guys need to make sure that you're going to the same place, or this flight is not going to be comfortable. It's not going to go smoothly. And so our goal is to ultimately get to that same place. Once you determine that you're going to the same place, then there's this dynamic of authority where the captain is in charge of the first officer, but the first officer is there to assist the captain. So there shouldn't be this animosity between the two of them. They ultimately have the same goal and they're ultimately trying to get to the same place. So Ephesians 5:25-26 says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, so that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word. So the captain is always going to have the back of the first officer. Their goal is the same, but he's going to treat that first officer with respect, and he's putting him or her in that decision-making role because you're ultimately working together to get to that goal, but you are both a part of that decision-making process. You're both coming up with the plans and ideas. So if the captain is going to change course, he needs to talk to the first officer about it and make sure that they're in agreement and they think it's going to be okay. So on the way to your final destination, there's going to be storms that you're going through along the way, and you have to figure out how to go around them, because you don't want to go through the storm because that's ultimately going to be detrimental. So again, it's a teamwork effort that you're working on getting around that storm in some kind of variation. But if you can't agree, you can't come to that decision, it ultimately comes down to the captain's decision, because both of you are trying to get around that storm, but you might see different ways around it. Now, that doesn't mean that the first officer should blindly follow the captain, because if they're going in that wrong direction, or he or she is intentionally taking you off course, then that means that the captain is breaking an agreement you had in the beginning to get to the final destination. Your job as the first officer would be to get that captain turned back in the direction that you had agreed on in the first place, or be in that decision-making role to help you both be going in that direction as well. So if you're going around this way or you're going around this way, your goal is still going to be the same. And we just want to ultimately get to the same place. So then I decided to ask the group of all the women that were sitting in that bridal shower, what's going to help us get to that final destination? What is going to make our marriage flow the best? And I thought it would be helpful for the women in the room that were married the longest to go through and give some examples of what leads to a healthy marriage. And some of the answers that I kind of received were, good communication. Make sure that you're both in that front seat. You're both trying to get to that same place. And if there is miscommunication, trying to get that resolved, and having separate hobbies. So you're both doing things that you enjoy, but ultimately, again, coming back together in the end, but having your own friends, having your own hobbies, doing things on your own as well. I know one of the popular things was never go to bed angry. Don't leave yourself in a negative situation where you can't see a way around the storm. Like, always try to find that agreement in some sort of way, as well as having fun together. Like, you want to always be almost in that fresh relationship. Like, my cousin just got married. We want to have that fresh excitement, but we also, life happens. We want to have fun together. We want to date. We want to, do fun activities together and have that same goal of a fun relationship, as well as trusting each other, because to get to that goal, that captain and the first officer have to agree, and not always agree necessarily, but they have to trust each other that they are trying to work towards the same goal in the end. Even if, they're putting in their own work to do that in different ways, the goal is for you to trust each other and work together to get that plane afloat. As well as like supporting each other through it. So I'm sure there's all kinds of answers that you could get if you were to give this kind of scenario. Marriage isn't going to be perfect. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, but the goal is that if we have these storms, that we're working together to get around them. And like a lot of wise women that have been married for a long time would say, is just, ask advice. If you're stuck in a spot where you cannot, work together to get to that final destination, then, ask a wise person that's been married a long time for their advice. It's okay to ask for help. Maybe we don't always trash talk each other, but maybe we can ask for good advice for people that have done it for a long time. So anyway, that was kind of the little devotional that I went through with my cousin's bridal shower. I hope that it could help somebody else. Maybe if you need an idea for a bridal shower devotional, there's a little example. You can always use it. My tip of the day: marriage isn't perfect. If you're married, great. If you're not married, fine. Anytime we're in a relationship, for things to be where you're working together and you're ultimately trying to get to the same goal. Because even with your friends, if you guys don't have the same goals in place, you completely are opposites. Sometimes it's a little harder to get to that. In the end, we have relationships and lives, and it's okay to have storms in all those relationships. Yeah, that would be my little tip of the day. But I also wanted to show you my decorations. I've had a dream for years about this Halloween decoration idea where you have those little ornamental flamingos that are in your yard. I wanted little Mr. Bones riding them, and so here's a couple of videos. I have 4 of them now, where it's a little skeleton that is riding a flamingo, and they're so cute. And I also put out my other little decorations. I try to make my Halloween decorations cute because I want kids to come over and not be scared of my yard, but also I would rather just be kind of cute. So I've got my 2 little Mr. Bones sitting on their little chairs, as well as my little Halloween ghosts that my mother-in-law gave me, and it's just the little kid that's in a Halloween costume. And I love Halloween. I think it's really fun, as long as, we're not too spooky ooky, but I do like a spooky ooky thing. If there aren't kids around, I like, haunted houses and things like that. So happy October if you're watching in October, but I love fall. So let's enjoy it. Get your pumpkin spice latte. Get out there. I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't talk to strangers unless they give you Halloween candy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.